Okay, let's move on to presidential politics with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, brushing aside questions from the media about President Obama's patriotism and religious faith. The Republican governor saying, like most Americans, he's more concerned about serious issues affecting our future. But David, it wasn't just these questions. Last week or 2 weeks ago, he didn't want to answer the question about evolution. You know, when you're considering running for president, you have to answer, don't you think, have to be ready at least to answer almost any question?
You do. You have to be able to answer whatever question, how silly it may be. But you know, there's a reason why pitchers and catchers are going to spring training now and not showing up the opening day of baseball. You need practice, you need preparation, and that's what Scott Walker and all of these 2016 contenders are going through right now.
Yeah, but it's different than baseball. I love baseball more than anyone, but it's different because the mistakes you make, Julie, when you're running for president, now with, you know, cell phones and videotape and everything captured, it matters, doesn't it?
You know, a national reporter said to me, I thought this was a great line, you don't get to ignore questions from the press until you become president. Until you become president, you got to take questions no matter how silly they are. Look, Scott Walker could have answered any of these questions to the satisfaction of his own base. He didn't need to punt on any of them. There are answers he could have provided that could have satisfied at least an element of somebody.
He says, David, that they were gotcha questions.
Sure.
He said that maybe Democrats wouldn't be asked the same kinds of questions. For example, he refused to comment on Giuliani's comments about the president not being patriotic. He refused to comment on whether Obama is a Christian. And then, as I mentioned, the evolution question. Then he has made a habit of kind of coming back to Twitter and making his statements known a few hours later.
Democrats get asked these questions as well. Maybe not in the same numbers that Republicans do, but you know, that's the way life is. I challenge both of you. Find a voter who next year is going to say, Scott Walker did good for Wisconsin. He has good ideas for America. He's very middle class. But, you know, I can't vote for him because last year he wouldn't answer those questions.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
No one's going to make their decision off of this.
It's a great point, but here's the problem. Rick Perry had the exact same argument he could have made for Texas. I remember that screw-up when he had the debate where he couldn't remember the third point or the fourth point. You know, that defines you as a candidate. No matter how good or how bad your record is, you get defined as a persona. And that's what ends up getting you in a lot of trouble when you start running. Look, I think Scott Walker is a tremendous amount of promise. I think Scott Walker is a very strong candidate going into 2016, but he's got to tune up his game. He's got to get back on the ball, and he's got to start realizing you can't just, this isn't the Wisconsin press corps. This is the National Press Corps, that you've got to answer all these questions.
You can't punt. Maybe he should go down to spring training for a while and get a little practice. All right, guys.